Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'll show you how you can animate slime or goo using opentoonz. So let's begin. Alright, so the first thing we'll do is to open up the program opentoonz and let's create a new project. You'd actually have this dialog pop up, so I'll click on new project and I'll give the project a name. I'll call this goo and I'll click OK. This will just ensure that we have a project where we can save all our content. To begin working, we need to create our scene. So I'll just hit on this new scene button and I'll give the scene a name. I'll just call it goo1, basically our first goo, and I'll hit create scene. So now that we've created our scene, what we need to do is to create our drawing levels. So here at the top, I'll just click on level and go to new level, and I'll just click on new vector level. It's going to tell me it's going to use vector level A, and these are where our drawings are going to be. I'll just click OK. Now you can see we have a level called column 1. I'll just double click on this and call it sketch and close that like that. Now we're actually on the hand tool where we can grab this. If for any reason this is zoomed out, you can just click on this dot to frame everything back, or you can right click and actually set that or use fit to window. Right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and click on our brush. You notice that there are these two areas, these red marching ant lines. These are just a view that shows us the safe area. We can turn this off, but it just tells us where our drawing is going to be cut off. Basically, if I draw something here, this point here is going to be cut off and I don't want that, so I just want to be drawing within these bounds. So right now my brush size is super large, so I'll set a value between the min and max and just experiment and test this out. I think this is a good position to actually stop. What I want to do is to animate goo. So the first thing we want to do is just create a path that the goo is going to follow. Let's just quickly freestyle that. And it's actually a fun way to work because we don't need to think about complexities and all that. So I'll just start from here, and something weird about my brush. Let's go to our vector brush, we'll just use the default brush, and let's dial down accuracy a bit. I think it's totally fine now. So let's just create a path for our dot to follow. So I'll hit next. Now it disappears, and by hitting next I just clicked the arrow keys. So the left arrow key and right arrow key will move between the frames, and we can see we're moving between our frames right here. I can just drag this and make our frames much more visible, and what we want to do is to turn on onion skin. So we can actually click this dot at the front, and if we get back here, this is actually showing us our previous drawing, so pre and post drawings, by just clicking on this section here. So we can actually reference our drawing. So I'll draw another one close to it and hit the arrow key and draw a next one, and hit the arrow key and start moving slightly slower, and hit the arrow key. Let's draw another one like that. I think I'll turn off my pressure, so I'll hit the arrow key, and now I'm going to move quite a bit faster away from here. So while we're animating, anytime we have points close to each other, it's going to be slow movement. But each time we have points further away, it's going to be a fast movement. So I'll go over to frame 6 and just start moving this a bit further away. Like that. Go to 7. I'm going to smear this, and we'll just have go to 9, just to move this further. Go to 10, and then sort of change the direction, and I'll start slowing down again. So 11, we'll go to 12. Now I'm drawing it closer to each other because I'm just indicating that it's actually slowing down. 14, and then we'll have some constant motion, and 15, 16, 17. Now we can even see more frames by selecting this. So we can just try and space these evenly. So here, I'm just going to put it back here. And then I'll just slow down, begin to slow down now. So this is frame 18. So for frame 19, it's going to start slowing down. Let's go to 20. Let's go to 21. Let's go to 22. I don't like how the pressure is messing up here. So let's dial the accuracy and make it very high. And I'll just undo using Ctrl Z. So I'll just make this really close to this, and at 24 we'll just stop here. So what I'll do is to drag this edge here. You can see that white line. We'll just drag that and make sure it's on 24, which is our entire animation range. And let's hit this loop button, and we can just play this, and we can actually see how our shape just moves. And so we have fast movement, and then we have slow movement as well, which is quite a nice thing to do. If we wanted to add more frames, and say for instance where this object is actually here, we could just keep doing that and accelerate our object again. And I'll just show you one quick way to do the acceleration. So I'll just drag this to about, say, 41. So after 24, I'm on frame 25, and I'll begin to accelerate this object. And to accelerate means we'll double the spacing. So here, if I start from here, I go to 26, I'm going to double this. So this is like that on 27, and I'll make sure I have from frame 24, so we can see we're doubling this. So twice that distance should be around here. I'm eyeballing it, right? Doesn't have to be perfect. So 28, we're just moving this further like that. On 29, you can see we're going down here, and then now I'll begin to slow it down by reducing that movement's speed. So we're on 29 here, so I'll get rid of that. So on 29, I want to slow down the ball. So I'll just begin drawing frames and halving the speed of those frames. So here, we're going fast now, and then we'll begin to slow down. So here, just do this, and do that, and then draw this closer, and draw this here. So let's just see what we have here. I'll drag it and make sure the animation range is within that. Okay, so that's super cool. So now that we have that, let's create a new layer above and use that as a reference to begin drawing another shape that is going to be influenced by this. And by that, we're going to actually animate our goo. Let's hit Ctrl S to quickly save our project, and to create a new level, we can use the shortcuts here. Right? I believe the middle one is the raster level. So there's a vector level, there's a raster level, and there's a new toonz raster level. So I'll just create a vector level, and I'll hit OK. So we have our column 2. I'll just call this our goo and hit OK. So what I'll do is to click this nice little triangle here and just dial this down. And what that is going to do is to minimize or reduce the opacity of our layer right here. So now we are on the goo layer. We can see the sketch layer is a bit fainted, and what I'll do is just lock this layer like that so we don't accidentally draw on this layer. So let's go back to the goo layer, and what I want to do is to begin start drawing around this. I'll turn on the pressure, and let's just test this out. So what I'm going to do is just begin creating goo around this shape, and the shape is going to influence the direction of the goo. So let's just begin. So I'll just freestyle a nice little shape like that. You can see nothing too fancy there. I think it's I'll just try to dial this down a bit. Yeah, I think it's better if it's a bit light. So I have this here. I'll hit the arrow key, and I'll just draw another one and try to follow that region of influence. Basically, it's like this goo is pulling the object, and we can turn on our onion skin just to see what we have here. So I'm going to 4, and I'll just start making some nice little changes here. So now I'm just going to elongate this a bit, just drawing around the shape. It doesn't have to be perfect actually. Now we have this moving here, so we can quickly scrub through, like so here. So the next one, it's actually moved forward. I'll just drag this and use that to just follow this. So let's go to 8, and we'll just draw this here. It's a bit smeared like that, and now it's really moved so fast. So let's just draw this and kind of do that. And what I want to do around this is just to indicate a nice little breakaway. So I'll just draw a nice little tail here, and let's go to 10. Now this quickly shortens this, so I'll just indicate that it's actually curved like that, and this breakaway point is now smaller and has emitted a small one. I'll just undo that. I don't like how that shape came out, so I'll just do that again. Yeah, and then we have this small with some trailing ones that are broken. So let's go to 11, and let's just draw this like that. Let's make a smaller one. So let's go to 12, and now we're picking back up. And the cool thing about drawing goo is that the goo doesn't really have to follow a precise or distinct shape. So let's just keep going. And now it's actually slowing down, so I might want to have a couple of these frames just indicate that we're pushing this guy forward. So I'll go to 15. So now it's begun to move up now, right? So we'll go to 16, and it has moved from that point quickly to this point. So I'll use the head of the goo as a guide to just do that. And let's just keep going. So now it has actually moved here. So I'll just draw a nice little path to indicate that it has actually moved and curved away from us. So we'll go to 19. So let's see, 18, 19. So it's begun to slow down now. So I'll just draw one that's quite close to this shape. Let's go to 20. Like that. So we're slowing down now. And for 21, so now I'm not really following the rule. I'm just trying to draw this and indicate that we have some slow movement right now. like that. So I'll just keep drawing this closer to each other. We can actually scrub and see what we have here. Alright, so towards that part I actually dissociated myself from the main slob, but we can actually change things we want. Remember, that dot is just there as a guide, and I don't like how this is, so we can use the eraser to clean up some of these sections and then go back to the brush tool and just make sure this is somewhat lined up. I know there's some weirdness around here. Back to the brush tool, and we can zoom in. We're not really limited to this, so I'll hold spacebar to use the hand tool and drag this, so we can always zoom in and work more accurately, like that. Again, we can use this dot to fit the frame, or we can zoom in and move around. It's not a problem. So here I'm just going to move this quite fast, so I'll just do this like that, and I'll double the distance like that, double it again, so you can see we're actually moving away, and then I'll slow it down now. So to slow it down, we'll just draw frames that are close to it, and we'll draw another one slowing down like that, and draw another one that's quite close to it, and another one like that. And then here it's almost back to a circular kind of shape. So let's hit this and see what we have here. And we can turn off our layers. If I go to the sketch and click on this, you can see we're not seeing that that drawing there. And what we can do is to, if we wanted to slow down this animation, we can slow down the FPS, or we can make our drawing on twos. And it's very simple doing that. I'll just click this and drag the entire animation here and click on twos. And once we're on twos, we actually have more frames because we're skipping one frame. So now our drawing is at 66. So let's drag this to 66 and play this. And let's loop this, so you can see we have something that is actually fun and loops, and it's much more slower. But what I want to do is to add a little bit of color to this. So I'll undo, using undo, undo. And now we are on our regular 33 frames, like that. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of color to this guy. So I'll just move over here and start from the first frame. And to add color, all we need to do is to create, we can use lines or fills using the paint bucket tool. So if I click on the paint bucket tool here, I can create a new color. So here I just clicked on the palette, and what I'll do is just move this around, and you can see, let's try green, like Slime, right, like that. And what we can do is to just paste that here. So I'll make sure that we are on this color, and you can see we have a green slime. We just keep moving. Like that, and coloring our slime. We can even do things like make it more fun and change this, but I'll just leave it as a flat color. Like that. We keep going and filling our slime with our little green color. Now there are different modes for the fill. We can use either a brush fill. If we actually use the brush, I believe the brush is actually here. we can use the paintbrush tool to fill either the like fill or stroke, right? So that's how that comes up. But I'm just using the brush because it's straightforward to fill a nice little color. Almost done. Let's keep going, and I'll be hitting the arrow keys for shortcut. You see, it's actually faster using the arrow keys rather than, you know, coming down here to click on that. And I'll also set this range down here. Right. So there's a drawing on each frame, and let's just test this out. So we can see how that's working. So what we can do now, when we're done, is to select the entire frame range, and we can set it on 2s. And then we can just drag this handle at the bottom and make sure that the entire animation range is here up to 66. Right, so we can actually play this. So we can see we have a nice little blobby kind of zoom thingy. Like I said, there's a lot of ways to actually paint this. If we wanted, we could use the brush. And then we have to create the palette for it. But I believe that's totally fine. So now that we have this animation, how do we export this? Right? How do we export this very short clip and share it with the world and tell them, hey, we just made blob. Now the cool thing about a blob animation is that it's a very nice way to just experiment and create random shapes, and then use those shapes to see how you can animate an object by changing its position. And it's much more fun to do than creating, say, a bouncing ball that requires an accurate shape. So we can still do that with the bouncing ball, for example. So I don't want this to be too long, so I'll just I do have a bouncing ball example, so let's see how we can render this. So this is our frame range. Remember, if we click this white little triangle here, it's just telling us the range of this animation. For instance, if I stop at 42 and I play this, it's actually cutting off the animation from here. But if I drag this, so you can see we get the complete animation. So what we can do is go to render, and let's go to our output settings, and this is where we can specify what type of file format we want to export our animation. It could be MP4, or it could be TIFF or PNG, GIF or JPEG. So here we can actually see the animation name, and this is the folder where it's going to save our animation. We can always change this and put it somewhere, but this is the location. So my drive D, I have my opentoonz stuff, projects, goo, outputs. So this is where this is going to be saved. opentoonz stuff, projects, goo, output. I can give it a name here. I can call it goo1 render, and then here for the options, I'll set this to MP4. And here we can set our frame rate to either 24 or 12 FPS. I'll leave it at 24 FPS because I drew on ones. Basically, drew on 2s, sorry. Basically, it means we're skipping. There's an empty frame for each drawing, so the drawings are going to look, less fast. So, and then what do we do again? Okay, yeah. So say for instance, we just want frame 1 to 60. We can specify it here. We can just impute 60, and it's going to frame start from 1 to 60 or any other range. I'll just make this to 66, and let's hit render. And what this is going to do is to check each frame and then render each frame, and then put that frame in that folder where we have our goo. So it's in our D opentoonz stuff, projects, goo, output. I'll just quickly go to the folder. So I'll go to D. So this is my opentoonz stuff. So we have our projects, we have our goo, and it's in our outputs, and there we have our goo render. Let's just go ahead and play it. Okay, so I noticed a little bit of a mistake there. We actually left this layer visible, so it's going to also show the sketch layer. Right, so that's one way we can actually prevent it. We can also delete this layer. We can hide this layer's visibility so we don't see any of that render. So let's go to output settings, and yeah, so that's how you can create a nice little animation, and that's how you can actually render your animations. Thank you very much for watching. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next quick tip.